Okay, so just ignore that first part, changes from previous update, because I had to do this in a hurry. Okay, so the situation overview for Hurricane Ida, the storm is up to 80 miles an hour now for sustained winds. The movement has not changed, it's still to the northwest of 15 miles an hour. It's basically just off the coast of Cuba, and it's going to continue to move northwestward and is expected to enter the Gulf of Mexico tonight. Ida will continue to strengthen as it crosses the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow, and is still expected to make landfall along the coast of Louisiana as a major hurricane on Sunday. In fact, the strength of the hurricane has been increased to 140 miles per hour at landfall, which is a Category 4.
We've lost audio.
Storm warnings and hurricane watches are now in effect for all of our Mississippi counties. Storm surge warnings are also in effect for all of the coastal areas of southeast Louisiana and Mississippi, and I'll get into some more details on that in the next slide. So the threat levels, those have not really changed significantly, except for the rainfall flash flooding. The wind and surge still remain extreme. The rainfall flash flooding, we increased from a high threat to an extreme threat. It looks like we could see a stretch of rainfall that exceeds 20 inches in some areas that could cause some extreme flooding. River flooding, we still kept as a high threat, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. We'll see what some of the river flood forecasts look like when they come out, especially tomorrow. And the tornado threat still remains on the lower end. Still, an elevated risk of tornadoes, but definitely not a higher extreme risk. And of course, marine impacts for all of our marine interests is extreme due to the high wind, high wave, surge, and everything that could batter a lot of the marinas and ports in the area. So here's the quick overview of the hurricane and tropical storm watches for the area. Warnings, sorry, I didn't update that part. You can see the graphic to the left, hurricane and tropical storm warnings in effect. The dark red is all the warnings in southeast Louisiana, which is our entire area, and the tropical storm warnings are all of our counties in Mississippi. There's also a hurricane watch out where the tropical storm warnings are in place because of the concern that maybe this storm could grow in size, the wind field could expand, and we may see hurricane force winds, even impact areas where the tropical storm warning is in effect. And here's the earliest reasonable time of arrival for these winds. You can see that it looks like it's going to be in the Saturday evening, like late Saturday evening time frame. The tropical storm force winds, the earliest time of arrival would be Saturday 8 p.m. right there in Lower Plaquemines Parish, right on the tip of our CW or our forecast area. More than likely, the worst of the tropical storm force winds will begin to encroach the area by midnight. As far as the peak of the hurricane force winds, we really expect that to happen on Sunday. So here's the wind threat potential. You can see in the graphic to the left that the purple area basically stretching from, say, like Woodville, Centerville area down through Hammond, and then including pretty much all of Metro New Orleans is in the extreme.
Let me get on the webinar. Wouldn't let me get on the webinar, so I'm just listening.
Force winds are expected to be greater than 110 miles per hour in these areas than purple. Obviously with a 140-mile-hour storm moving across Terrebonne Parish, that's where the worst of the winds are going to occur. Terrebonne, Lafourche, up through portions of Baton Rouge. But there could be some wind gusts that are over 110 miles per hour, even in Metro New Orleans and portions of say like Livingston, Hammond, that area. The area in red is where there's a high threat, and basically we're expecting significant hurricane force winds there of 74 to 110 miles per hour. And basically that includes pretty much all of the North Shore, Covington, Mandeville, Slidell, on up through Franklinton, northern parts of Tangi, as well as up through Macomb and parts of the Mid-County, like up around Liberty and those areas. So that, we're expecting significant impacts there as well. All these areas in purple and red could see structural damage, trees down, extensive power outages, lots and lots of wind damage. The further east we get, as we get into coastal Mississippi, it's more of a, elevated to slight risk of or moderate risk of extreme winds, and we're expecting more like tropical storm force winds there. We may get a few gusts that get into hurricane force at times, especially if you're over in Hancock and Harrison County up through Pearl River and Walthall. The further east you get, the lower the wind threat should be. But overall, there's still going to be wind impacts even there on the coastal Mississippi, where you could still have some power outages, some trees fall, especially with the rain that we saw today. Some areas on the coast got 3 to 5 inches of rain out of that earlier today, and that's just going to lead to a higher probability of trees falling just because of the saturated soils. All right, so here's the storm surge watch warning that we have in effect for the area. This storm surge warning is actually in effect all the way from the Mississippi-Alabama border past Morgan City. So it includes our entire coastal area. Now, the biggest change that has happened with this is that the warning now does include areas within the hurricane storm damage risk reduction system. Specifically, it includes the areas within the levees on the west bank of Jefferson and St. Charles Parish. And you can see that somewhat here in this map, that basically it traces all the way up to the west side of the river now. So that's a big change. And that's something that you all will have to take into account. And a storm surge warning means that there is a possibility of life-threatening inundation from storm surge somewhere in the specified area within 36 hours. So that's a big change, especially for the west bank there of Jefferson. So here's the peak storm surge values, and this is the reason why we extended the warning to include the areas within the levees on the west bank. Because it's a Category 4 hurricane, we're expecting 10 to 15 feet of storm surge, basically from Morgan City to the mouth of the Mississippi River. And as we know, the hurricane levee system, most areas ranges from 12 to 14 feet above ground level. So if we do have, 13 to 15 feet of storm surge that does make it up to the levees there on the west bank of Jefferson, then we may have some issues with overtopping. So that's where our concerns are there. That's why the warning has been issued. For areas east of the river, all the way over to Ocean Springs, we're still expecting 7 to 11 feet of storm surge, still significant storm surge above ground level, lots of impacts. For the East Bank, those areas around Braithwaite, all the areas that are prone in Plaquemines Parish, Delacroix, Reggio, all those areas outside the levees in St. Bernard, obviously Bay Waveland, there's going to be some impacts there, and right along the immediate coast there in Harrison, down along Highway 90. Once you get east of Ocean Springs, the threat drops down to about 4 to 7 feet. And the same for Lake Pontchartrain, it's about a 4 to 7 foot surge that we're expecting right now. So the impacts will be a little lower there. We'll still see some, and especially Lake Pontchartrain on the west and north shores of the lake. That's where we're expecting the water to pile up. So areas on the north shore, Slidell and Mandeville, the Mandeville lakefront, Palm Harbor and Slidell, all those areas that are more prone to storm surge flooding issues. That's where our big concerns are right now with this event. We may even have some down there, for near I-10, I-55, that area that gets water a lot. So that's that. We'll have to keep an eye on that for some of the levels there in the lake. Lake Morpile, we're expecting about 3 to 5 feet. So there will be some issues, but it doesn't look like it's going to be catastrophic. Definitely nothing like what we saw with Hurricane Isaac in 2012. Fortunately, this system is going to be moving and it won't let the water pile into the lake like it did with that one. And just to give you an idea, here's like the potential storm surge impacts. Kind of a broad brush, but it gives you an idea. This is showing that a purple area, there is the potential for surge to exceed 9 feet above ground level. Now, the caveat here is that this didn't really sector out to where the levee overtopping concerns could be on the west bank. There, we're not expecting that much of a flood concern. Right now, from what we saw from some of from the storm surge unit projections, is it would probably be less than 3 feet of overtopping flooding. But that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Obviously, if it's a Cat 5, then our surge values may increase, and then you always plan for a category higher, like we say. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decisions here in the next few hours. For the areas that are in red, we're expecting surge flooding, orange and red, about 3 to 9 feet above ground level. So there will be impacts there, but we're not expecting quite as catastrophic as what we're going to see down along the coast, down there in Terrebonne Lafourche, Lower Jefferson, and Plaquemines Parish on the west bank. All right, so inland flooding impacts. We're seeing, we increased it, like I said, to a potential for extreme flooding rain now. That is a change from before, and it's this band. We're expecting a band of heavy rain basically to stretch from the Houma Thibodeau area up through the river parishes, portions of Metro New Orleans, and portions of Metro Baton Rouge, as well as around Hammond, so the western portions of the North Shore. And that's where we could see those 20+ inch rainfall amounts, and that's why we're really concerned about flash flooding and river flooding for those areas. Not the Mississippi River, of course, but all the local rivers. That's where we're going to have some big concerns. And some of the local bayous, with the surge going on and the rainfall, the bayous are probably going to overflow, especially down there in Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes and some of the river parishes. Outside of that, a good, arc of 8 to 16 inches of rain is likely going to fall across the rest of the region, and that's going to cause additional river flooding issues as well across coastal Mississippi, across the rest of the North Shore, across Southwest Mississippi. So just keep that in mind. And this, is going to be an ongoing event. So once the surge and the wind get out of here by, say, Monday morning, the flooding issues on the rivers could continue for the rest of the week. So just remember that. And then the potential tornado impacts. We have a potential for a few tornadoes. They're typically short-lived. They're in rain bands. The primary tornado threat is going to be Sunday into Monday as the system pulls through. It says likely to increase. We'll see if that happens or not. But, at this point, just plan on Category 4, so that's a significant event. Life-threatening storm surge flooding is expected, and we're expecting 10 to 15 feet Morgan City to the mouth of the river, 7 to 11 feet mouth of the river to Ocean Springs, 4 to 7 feet Lake Pontchartrain and Ocean Springs to the Alabama border, and about 3 to 5 feet in Lake Maurepas. Heavy rain, 8 to 16 in general, but now we have that swath of 20+ that we're concerned about. So flash flooding and river flooding are going to be a concern. A few tornadoes, and obviously the marine conditions are going to be dangerous for any of our marine interests. Nobody should be out on a ship in this. So that's it. There's a contact info, and I will open it up to questions.